Hey YouTube, welcome back to Super Lorcana World, your one-stop shop for everything Lorcana, and I'm with you today to tell you 5 budget decks that you can build for the Disney Lorcana first chapter. Because some cards are very expensive, some deck themes are very expensive, and the barrier to entry with some of these prices on certain decks is absolutely ridiculous compared to other card games. That being said, there are cheap decks. There are budget decks that are good, that are fun ideas. And if you guys want to own real cards and you want to, try them out and how it goes, this might be the video for you. Now, I'm not going to give you deck lists in this video. Oh, no. But if you want to see one of the 5 budget deck lists, maybe let me know in the comments if one of those decks, get a lot of views or a lot of comment reactions. Maybe we do it. Maybe I'll do a deck profile. I already did Maurice for you, and that's one of them. That's why I'm starting with Maurice. But yeah, if you guys want to see these budget decks, just let me know in the comments, and we'll see what we can do. Well, we'll see what we can do. But, let me know in the comments what you think, honestly. And did I miss a really good budget deck? I just might have. Let me know anything in the comment section below. Like the video and subscribe. We're a new channel. We are trying to grow. And if this is content you like, just let me know. Well, I don't mind doing budget decks. Budget decks are cool. Now, before I talk about the 5 decks, I do want to tell you guys about things you'll not be able to do as a budget player. And I'm considering budget at around $100 USD. These are decks you can build for around $100 USD. If it's way more than that, it ain't on this list. So if you want to play, Rapunzel, it's not budget anymore. Rapunzel's crazy. I think it is actually the most expensive card in the set now. That's non foil or enchanted or whatever. But yeah, you want to play like Moana princesses and you don't want to use Rapunzel. I mean, then you're just playing a worse deck, right? So we're not even going to talk about that. If you want to play Rapunzel in your yellow deck, forget it. And when I say yellow, of course I mean amber. If you want to do some kind of blue ramp package with Bells or Hades, the legendary Hades, forget that too. These are very expensive cards. The blue ramp legendaries, yeah, no. If you want to build an Amethyst deck that uses copies of Elsa's Spirit of Winter, you're not going to be able to do that. You just won't be able to do that. And on actually that note, the Ruby Amethyst deck that is seeing a lot of tier 1 hype is very expensive because it also plays 4 copies of Maleficent, which I'll bring up right now if I know how to spell it. Yeah, this. As you can see here, $34. The Ruby Amethyst deck plays 4 of this, and it plays 4 Elsas, or some variation of that, right? That's not very budget, is it? I don't think so. If you want to play a Stitch deck, Stitch decks, a playset of Stitch almost runs you $100, right? And then all the other cards you gotta play, yeah, no, I'm not throwing Stitch in the budget pool. There ain't no way. And if you think about building cheap aggro decks with things like Lilo and the 1-drop Maleficent, that's the same thing. Aggro decks like that with these expensive rares, because Maleficent's only a few bucks cheaper than this. You're not going to be able to do that either. You're just not going to be able to do that. Amber seems like the most expensive ink, Amber and Sapphire, where every other legendary color has a cheap card and there are 2 cheap cards. So just keep that in mind, okay? So these are like upgrades you can make to certain decks for sure if you wanted to do that. But we're not talking about those decks. We're talking about decks that you can optimally play without any expensive cards. And I'll say, you know what, if you want to play a couple copies of this expensive card here, it won't run you too much over the budget. We're going to do that. So let's go ahead and talk about Maurice. Maurice item control. If you look at the deck list that I used on my channel, it plays 4 copies of that Belle. You don't have to play Belle. You just don't have to do that, right? Belle is just 1 win con. You can just play Tamatoas. Tamatoa in this archetype is just as good because it quests for 1 for every item you have. So if you want to play the Sapphire Amethyst item deck that I upload on YouTube, take out the Bells, all of a sudden it's a very budget deck. And there's other inks as well with cheap items that you can try Maurice with if you want to do that. So Maurice being the first, like truly, like you, Maurice is good, and you can build a cheap Maurice deck for $100 easy, in my opinion. If you like drawing cards and you like playing with items, if you're like an artifact person in Magic or whatever, this is a good deck, and I think you'd really enjoy it. So something to keep in mind there. Now, something I'll expand on a little bit more is Beast. Beast is a legendary. That's $4, $5. It really makes it like not so happy to buy booster boxes sometimes. And we're talking about that more in Market Watch tomorrow. But you know, Beast is a very good card, and it's a very based build around in like a steel deck, for instance. We have a deck floating around in our testing pool right now. You play some Beasts. You play Fire the Cannons, 4 of them, and you play the Captain Hook that adds back Fire the Cannons to your hand. So all of a sudden, you can spread damage however you want, and that's okay. If you want to make it a little more budget, you play Grab the Swords. That's $5 each. So that's $40 in Beasts and Grab Your Swords. And the rest of the cards don't have to be crazy. It's obviously recommended you play a couple copies of Tinkerbell, the giant one. That's a $20 card. So for the sake of this budget video, the rest of the deck, you can build it so it's so cheap that you can play Tinkerbells and not break the bank overly. But Beast is a build-around card. It's a deck that you can just play a Beast deck. How it works is you use cards that do damage in order to attack them with Beast, with Rush. And you can do Steel version, which is really, really good. You can do other versions as well. Beast build around is something you should keep in mind. Something that I've been tinkering with, and I think the Beast card is very overrated. And you can build a good Beast deck for probably really cheap, because Beast is so cheap. So take that as you will. That's just one deck idea. Beast is more a build around. I'm not going to include John Silver in here, because John Silver is the other legendary that's also very cheap. But I find that this is a lot more build around. And you can make Beast work in this format. So it's really good. Aladdin. This Aladdin is the one that comes in the starter deck. The one that whenever you banish another character in a challenge, you gain 2 lore, and each opponent loses 2 lore. Very, very, very powerful card as a 4 of. Now, all the red ruby cards that unsuspend your Aladdin are very cheap, and you can play cards. You don't have to, for example, you could play a Ruby Amethyst Aladdin Turbo deck, but omit the big Elsas and the big Maleficents. Instead, you focus on things like Little Elsa, and you focus on things like the Freeze action card that suspend your opponent's characters. And then you have Aladdin just come in here and clean things up. And that's really, really cool. The alternative way you can play this deck, which might work out, is you play healing cards. Like there's a ramp version of Aladdin that we're testing, a Sapphire Ruby ramp, that plays the coconuts, the coconut basket. You play some cheap dudes like LeFou. When you play LeFou, you're going to unsuspend your Aladdin, and then you're going to attack again, and coconut basket heals you too. So there's different ways you can definitely do this deck. Aladdin build around, just unsuspend, keep suspending your opponent's characters and just attacking over them, stealing all their lore. Very powerful win con. And it's something that you can do. Like you can just do it for very, very budget. You can obviously make the deck a lot more expensive, but we're not going to talk about that today. Aladdin, we have a cheap budget version. If you want it, let me know. Ariel, this is song control. I uploaded yesterday on YouTube a song control deck. Honestly, it's not that expensive. It really isn't that expensive. Ariel being a $6 card is really good for your song decks, right? The Shell Necklace isn't that much money. Part of Your World isn't that much money. And the green cards that we even comboed with to build the deck in the deck profile yesterday, there isn't anything there that's that much money. There's John Silver, but John Silver is not that much money. So, that's a budget deck in itself, ironically. But there's different ways you can play the Ariel deck, right? Every color has songs. And Ariel can take advantage of those songs. And songs are very cheap for the most part. So, Ariel build around song decks, you can do them for a budget. And I think you can do them quite well for a budget. I think that, the ceiling as to what you can do with song control is very, very high. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Ariel, great card, great budget card. Song control, a-okay. The last deck I want to talk about today is something a little more on the funny side per se. It kind of works like Aladdin, but it does a different thing. So this is DrFacilier. He's an Into the Shadows. Whenever one of your other characters manage a challenge, you may return that card to your hand. Now, the theory here is you have things like Rafiki with Rush that crash into your opponent's characters, you bring them back to your hand, and you replay them. You also have the White Rabbit Pocket Watch to give your characters Rush. And you can play Magic Mirror, which is pretty cheap right now, and draw some cards if you have nothing else going on. Now, to suspend opponent's characters so that you can do that, you can play cheap Elsa, and you can play the frozen option, or action, the one that just costs 2 and suspends a character. But you have other cards and other colors that can also exert characters to a certain extent. Even like Beast, for example, ironically, can kind of do that if it's damage. So there's different combinations on how you can do this. But DrFacilier build around, very, very cheap. Very, very cheap because this is a rare. And it's $3-4. You can build a really cool deck like that. It also gives you access to Pot of Greed, which lets you draw 2 cards, and that's pretty good. And it gives you access to a lot of cool other tools that the Amethyst color has. And then you mix them up with whatever other color you want to mix it with, whatever you think would have really good recursion. And you can do it without breaking the bank. Because again, you can play Big Elsa in this deck. You can just do that. But you probably don't need to do that, right? You can play a budget version of this deck and do fine. And I want to give one final shout out to something here. People have told me their issues with the starter decks, right? If we pull up any starter deck here, very, very, very expensive, and you hate to see it. And part of the problem with the starter decks that people have told me, some cards in the starter decks come with only 1 copy of certain key cards, like 1 Moana, 1 Broom Mickey, 1 DrFacilier, for instance. Sucks, but it is what it is. But what you can do is when these decks hit the Walmarts and the Targets and all that, you can buy 4 decks for $100. Assuming you get there on time before all the scalpers get them and other people. But if you get them on time, right, you can buy 4 and you can build semi-competent decks. I'm thinking about doing a little bit of a gameplay video where we open 4 of this deck versus 4 of this deck. Which deck is better? Or we open 4 of this deck and try to fight this tier 1 meta deck. How did it go? I'm thinking about uploading content like that. And like the decks do work. Like they're not like super good tier 1 or anything like that. But for like an introductory moment into the card game, I think it's okay. You have to buy 4 though, because trying to play Moana Turbo with 2 or 3 Moana is kind of cringe. It's not the way. But yeah, that's it for this video. Hope you guys found it really, really instructive, and I hope you found it like resourceful. You can build Lorcana on a budget, which is the point of this video. You don't have to pay the expensive prices to play Rapunzel or Belle or whatever else. You don't have to do things like that. So yeah, that's it for today's video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and I will see you guys later. Bye!